If you look at what's happening across the American financial system right now, you'll see something extraordinary, a silent transformation happening in plain sight. Most people don't even realize it yet. But inside the walls of every major US bank, the foundations of money movement are being rebuilt. And here's the truth most retail investors don't see. This transformation is not optional, it's inevitable. Because the global financial system has changed, and the United States banking network is being forced to adapt. At the center of that change sits one technology designed for exactly this purpose: XRP. This is crypto equation. And today we're breaking down why every bank in the United States will eventually be forced to switch to systems powered by XRP. Not because they want to, but because they'll have no other choice. To understand what's coming, we need to start with the old system, the one that's breaking right now. For decades, US banks have relied on a messaging network called SWIFT to move money internationally. It's slow, expensive, and outdated, designed in the 1970s before the internet even existed. Every transaction passes through multiple intermediaries, taking days to clear and costing both banks and customers millions in fees. In an age where data moves instantly, this system can't survive. The pressure to modernize is enormous, from regulators, from corporations, and from global competition. Meanwhile, newer technologies like Ripple's on-demand liquidity and the XRP ledger are proving they can move money in seconds, with near zero cost and full transparency. So while SWIFT still dominates the headlines, the banking industry knows it's already obsolete. It's just a matter of time before the transition becomes unavoidable. The first step in that transition has already happened, and it's called ISO 2022. You've probably seen this term before, but few people actually understand its importance. ISO 2022 is the new global messaging standard for financial transactions. It's what allows banks, payment processors, and central banks to communicate in a modern digital language. Every major bank in the world is now required to migrate to ISO 2022, including all US banks connected to the Federal Reserve and SWIFT. This isn't a choice, it's a regulatory mandate. Here's the connection most people miss. XRP is natively ISO 2022 compliant. It was built years ahead of this transition. That means Ripple's network already speaks the new financial language, while most banks are still struggling to update their legacy systems. The implication is massive, because once ISO 2022 becomes the global standard, only networks that can integrate smoothly will survive, and XRP's technology is already compatible out of the box. Let's zoom out for a second. In 2023, SWIFT processed about $150 trillion in cross-border transactions. It's the lifeblood of the global banking system, but it's inefficient. Ripple's on-demand liquidity, powered by XRP, can process the same transaction types instantly and cheaply, without needing pre-funded accounts. Instead of holding billions of dollars trapped in nostro vostro accounts worldwide, banks can use XRP as a bridge asset, converting currency A to currency B within seconds. This saves banks both time and capital. It improves liquidity, lowers settlement risk, and opens up new corridors that were previously too expensive to service. That's why hundreds of financial institutions around the world, including some US partners, are already using RippleNet for settlement. And that's why, as the US migrates to ISO 2022 and digital value systems, the existing rails simply won't be good enough anymore. They'll have to switch to something that works, and XRP works. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The Federal Reserve has launched its own instant payment system, FedNow. It's a domestic network designed to move money between US institutions in real time. Many people think FedNow competes with Ripple. It doesn't. FedNow handles internal transfers, not cross-border settlements. That's where Ripple comes in. In fact, Ripple's technology complements FedNow perfectly, connecting domestic instant payment systems to global corridors. Think of it as the bridge between local rails and international liquidity. So when US banks begin integrating with FedNow for instant payments, they'll still need something like XRP to handle the international side. And since Ripple has already proven its interoperability across more than 70 corridors, that shift is inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Let's talk about regulation, because that's the final piece that's been holding everything back. For years, the US regulatory environment was hostile toward crypto. The SEC lawsuit against Ripple was the perfect example of that. But when Ripple won partial clarity in court, with XRP officially recognized as not a security in secondary markets, the tide began to turn. Suddenly, banks and financial institutions had a green light to explore partnerships without fear of violating securities law. And Ripple wasted no time expanding. In 2025, Ripple announced several new initiatives focused on tokenization, real-world asset settlement, and CBDC integration. These are not speculative ideas. They're active pilot programs with real governments and financial institutions. Once these systems are live at scale, banks will need to connect to them to remain competitive. And the easiest way to do that? Through Ripple's network, powered by XRP. Let's get specific about the banking structure in the United States. There are over 4,000 commercial banks and 700 credit unions, all of which rely on a handful of payment rails controlled by larger entities like the Federal Reserve, SWIFT, and the Clearinghouse. These systems are siloed, slow, and inefficient. When Ripple's infrastructure integrates globally, the US banking sector will have two options: either modernize using Ripple's technology or risk being left out of the new financial grid. That's not hyperbole, it's economic necessity. Global payments are becoming instant. If US banks remain stuck in legacy systems, international trade will move elsewhere. No government can allow that to happen, not even the US. So when we say banks will be forced to switch, we don't mean by law, we mean by competition and survival. The financial system rewards efficiency, and XRP's efficiency is unmatched. Let's break down how this transition could actually unfold. Phase 1, modernization. Banks continue upgrading their internal systems to ISO 2022 compliance, preparing for digital integration. Phase 2, interoperability. Ripple and other fintech players begin connecting banks, central banks, and payment networks using standardized APIs and bridge assets like XRP. Phase 3, liquidity migration. As on-demand liquidity gains traction, banks realize they can eliminate billions in trapped capital. This triggers large-scale XRP adoption for settlement. Phase 4, revaluation. As institutional liquidity floods into XRP corridors, the token's circulating supply tightens. Market demand and price rise in tandem. That's the domino effect that could push XRP into a class of its own, not as a speculative token, but as a core infrastructure asset. Let's look at what banks are already doing quietly. In 2024, Ripple partnered with several payment service providers that directly plug into US banking networks. Through indirect channels, these banks are already testing or using Ripple technology, even if they don't publicly advertise it yet. It's the same pattern we've seen before with other innovations. When the internet first appeared, no major company wanted to admit they were switching from traditional communication systems. Then, one day, everyone had email. That's how change happens in finance. Slowly, then suddenly. Behind the scenes, testing becomes integration. Integration becomes dependency. And dependency becomes the new normal. That's where US banks are heading with Ripple. By the time the public realizes it, the shift will already be complete. Another key reason XRP will dominate banking integration is liquidity management. In the traditional model, banks hold massive reserves across multiple accounts worldwide to handle cross-border payments. This system is inefficient. It locks up capital that could otherwise generate returns. Ripple's on-demand liquidity eliminates that problem entirely. By using XRP as a bridge asset, banks no longer need to pre-fund accounts in foreign currencies. They can simply convert, send, and settle instantly, freeing up billions in liquidity. For CFOs and treasurers, that's an irresistible value proposition. As adoption spreads, using XRP won't just be a choice, it'll be the cost of staying competitive. Here's another layer few talk about: compliance and traceability. Unlike privacy coins or unregulated networks, XRP transactions are fully traceable, auditable, and transparent. That's exactly what banks and regulators require. This makes XRP fundamentally different from most crypto assets. It's not trying to replace the financial system, it's trying to upgrade it. That's why regulators and banks are far more comfortable adopting Ripple's technology compared to purely decentralized alternatives. It offers both innovation and control, the perfect balance for institutional finance. Now let's talk about timing, because timing is everything. Between 2025 and 2026, global financial standards are shifting faster than ever. ISO 2022 is being fully implemented across central banks. CBDC projects are moving from pilot to production, and asset tokenization is crossing the $1 trillion mark. These events all intersect with Ripple's roadmap, and when they do, XRP's role as the bridge asset becomes critical. US banks will face a simple reality: either connect to the new infrastructure or fall behind. And once even a few major banks adopt XRP for settlement, the rest will follow. That's how network effects work. Adoption drives necessity. Necessity drives standardization. And standardization drives value. Let's zoom out to the global picture again. The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have both discussed the need for interoperable digital payment systems. Ripple has been mentioned in IMF panels, CBDC roundtables, and financial inclusion reports for years. They're not building hype, they're building infrastructure. The same infrastructure that US banks will eventually need to connect to. Because global finance doesn't operate in isolation. It's one connected network. If the rest of the world is transacting on modern blockchain-based rails, American banks can't stay on 1970s technology. They'll integrate with whatever works best, and that more often than not will be Ripple's network. So what does this mean for XRP holders? It means that the groundwork for mass adoption is being laid right now, quietly, methodically, and globally. By the time retail investors see headlines confirming that US banks are using XRP, the early positioning phase will already be over. The price you see today reflects uncertainty. The price you'll see after adoption will reflect necessity. Because XRP isn't just another crypto asset. It's a tool for the next era of money movement. That's the distinction the market hasn't priced in yet. If you've been paying attention since the early days, you've seen this story before. Every major technological revolution looks slow until it's not. First they ignore it, then they dismiss it, then they quietly adopt it, and finally they depend on it. XRP is at the end of that curve. The banks won't have to be convinced, they'll be forced to integrate because the system demands efficiency, speed, and compliance. And XRP delivers all three. So the next time someone tells you XRP will never be used by banks, remember this. It already is, just not where the public can see it yet. Ripple's network is already powering payments between institutions across dozens of countries. And as the US financial infrastructure modernizes, those same technologies will move stateside. That's not speculation, that's evolution. And like every major evolution, it won't wait for anyone to catch up. If this video helped you understand the bigger picture, subscribe to Crypto Equation, where we break down crypto, finance, and innovation with facts, logic, and perspective. Drop a comment below. Do you think US banks will adopt XRP sooner than expected, or will regulation delay the shift? Either way, one thing is certain, the system is changing, and those who understand the equation early are the ones who win. This is Crypto Equation, and I'll see you in the next one.